Hi, good morning, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Mary Fran Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of CIO Programs here at IDG, and joining me today for a very lively conversation about digital transformation on a very big scale is the CIO and VP of Unisys Corp, Upinder Fanda. Once a provider of large-scale computing systems and mainframes, Unisys Corp, which is today about $3 billion in revenue, has had to significantly transform its business over the last 3 years. Today, the company manages large-scale IT operations for its customers, providing them with software services and security products. About 85% of Unisys's revenue now comes from providing cloud and infrastructure services, and nearly half of its business is in the government market. In his current role as VP and CIO since 2014, Upinder has worldwide responsibility for IT within Unisys. And that means identifying, innovating, securing, and delivering all those IT services and solutions through some 20,000 employees worldwide. He also does a great deal managing outside partners and clients, as so many CIO roles today are, both internally focused and external. And all of that transformation that's gone on at Unisys has required a significant amount of change, which has led to Unisys being a CIO 100 Innovation Award winner 2 years in a row, last year and again this year. Prior to his current role, Upinder was VP of Applications globally, and before that, he managed the Corporate Program Office for large-scale corporate initiatives. By next year, he will have 40 years of his professional life devoted to this company. He started out with the Burroughs Corporation before it merged with Sperry Univac and then became Unisys. And if you check out his LinkedIn profile, you'll see that the first line says, "It's an amazing time to be in technology at Unisys." So we're going to talk about why that is, plus a whole lot more today. Good morning, Upinder. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, good morning, Mary Fran. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, before we get into all that digital transformation, it always sounds so glamorous, doesn't it? Digital transformation. It's such an industry buzzword these days, but it's such reality for so many companies across every industry, probably even more so in the technology industry when you think about what has gone on. So before we get into talking about Unisys specifics, let's kind of float up to that 30,000-foot view and talk a little bit about the disruption of the tech industry and all of the change that you have been dealing with and how that has directly impacted Unisys and your CIO role.
Well, I don't think Unisys is any different to any other large corporation from a technology standpoint. I think everyone's been through a similar journey over the last 15, 20 years. All large corporations, went down the path of, implementing an ERP, for example.
Yes.
15, 20 years ago, everyone, either, I guess it was the choice of Oracle or SAP, and then we went down the Oracle route. And, since then, everything was on premise, because we believed, like everyone else, that we can do it better than anyone else. And, we spent the next 15 years integrating everything else that we could in sight and building this huge tanker.
This powerhouse,
right?
yes, exactly.
And we're very proud of it, over the last 4 or 5 years, business moves very quickly, and the requirement from the business is changing a lot quicker, from where we were, 5, 6 years ago. And from our perspective, we had to look at how can we enable our business. But it was very difficult with this sort of infrastructure that we built.
With your tanker.
Our tanker. And I needed to convert it, let's say, from a tanker to a tugboat. So that was the challenge, to go from a fairly large fixed infrastructure to a lot more flexible infrastructure that could, speed to business a lot quicker.
Well, the one of the when we talked about this previously, you made the point that CIOs often have to be gamblers. You have to put bets on 8 different horses, and maybe 3 of them will come in. But you feel like you gambled on all 8 horses, and they all came in. That it took a lot of risk, and that you got really lucky. Talk about how you did that.
Well, so every CIO has a transformation cell, Mary Fran, right? You can't be a CIO if you not have a transformation cell. So
Yeah.
my cell actually was put together. I had a new boss come in about 3 years ago, and we had a business review coming up. And it's the first time I had met him, and actually was in a Mexican restaurant down in Reston in DC. And I was bringing him up to speed with IT. And we didn't have any papers, so we took a napkin and, we started jotting down this. These are the things we want to do. This is our current state. This is where we want to get to. These are all the work streams.
Right.
And I brought the napkin in the next day, gave it to my VP of apps, and I said, "Can you turn that into a chart?" And he brought it in the next day, and it became my transformation. So I'm telling you, I have presented that now some 50 times.
Wow.
And it's running true. It genuinely started on a napkin, right?
Wow.
Because there is no, I think for every company, you have to create your own journey.
Yes.
And you need to understand where the corporation is, where it needs to go to, what are your hurdles. So, the analogy you gave, there are many parts. Obviously, you have to work on people, you have to work on processes, and you have to work on technology.
Yes.
But how much can you absorb, right? So, I said that, we picked a bunch of work streams that we thought were important for Unisys, if we could achieve those over the next 2 years. And like I said, we picked, 6, 7, 8 of them. Hoping that we would come through with at least 3 or 4, right? With resources that we had. I have a great team. I have great vendors who work with me, and in our case, we managed to deliver all of them, which I think there was a lot of luck there as well. We took a lot of risk, but we got the reward for it, right? So within the last 2.5 years. I think we've moved the corporation forward at least 10 years, right?
Yeah.
From a flexibility standpoint, from a cost reduction standpoint, and then, as you say, with the awards, which are great, actually for the organization, right? For all the work that's been put in. So
yes. Well, give us a few bullet points about some of those metrics. I've seen them listed on some of the press releases about the reductions that you made in the IT budget, in the headcount cuts, but also in other significant areas that let the business grow more.
Right. So our challenge was when we started this, and so that was our current state. Our run, obviously having reduced a lot of resources, when you do that, you tend to, when you look at your run build ratio,
yes,
it's the build that you're reducing, right? Because you need the run to keep the lights on, right? So we were basically at around 85, 90% run. And very little build left. So, there was not really much room for innovation.
Right.
So we had to, and we weren't going to get, a lot of funding. We had to self-fund this transformation. And so really we needed to attack the run. And reduce our run by automating IT processes. For example, we went down the ServiceNow route. Today, anyone wants to contact IT, that is the one place they go to. And then we looked at those no-go zones where, in an IT budget, there's not really much discretionary. You have your labor line. But then really, you have this maintenance line, which is what, you're paying annually for all the software that you're using. And those vendors don't tend to negotiate too much on those because they have you captive.
Yes.
And so that was a pretty significant line for us. And I had to try to break that. So one key decision we made was that our strategy was we were going to move into the cloud.
Yes.
And therefore, we're not going to upgrade anything on premise back 3 years ago.
Okay.
And so having done that, then I could look at, how much money am I paying, because we're an Oracle customer, a Microsoft customer, and then see if there were any other providers out there, third-party providers, that can give me support. I don't need upgrades or anything, just support, make sure my business. So, and that's what we did. We looked at third parties. We managed to find one, and we actually reduced our Oracle costs by 50%, which was a significant number that gave us, some room to start moving.
Yes.
On some of the work streams. So we didn't really leave any. There was no-go zone. We looked at everything. Even looking at Microsoft. We are an EA customer, so we sign up on a 3-year agreement. And there's significant amount of money, 21 million over 3 years. So, and it normally goes up every time you come to renewal.
Of course, that's their model.
Well, last time it went down, so, we went down into detail, almost as if by scratch. And I think I've frozen it.
You've frozen, but I'm still getting your voice, so we can keep
you can
talking.
hear me, okay.
Yes, exactly. It will unfreeze.
So, we renegotiated as if we were a new customer.
Yes.
And we looked at every part of, every bit of software that the company is using. How many licenses do we really need? It was quite a big exercise, but we did get a third party to help us. And that really helped us to minimize our cost with them too. So that gave us a significant amount of money too. To fund. So every year down this journey, that's what we've been doing. I mean, when we downsized our global sourcing organization, we were looking at 35% reduction on there. So all these components were helping us. So today we're running at a 55% run and a 45% build.
Wow. And with that 45% build, talk about some of the things you're able to do now that were not possible before.
Well, I mean, there's a lot more innovation. For example, last year, we were running PeopleSoft for a long time on premise.
Yes.
And again, this is being our cloud initiative. We chose to move to Workday. A Workday implementation on average, as a company our size, is around 18 months.
Okay.
We managed to implement that in 8 months with no additional cost from the corporation.
Yeah.
All right. So we were able to absorb that and actually reduce our cost for the year. We also had time to create. I have a big push for self-service in the company. I'm really trying to eliminate the help desk. We launched our bot called Iris, which, by the way, is Siri backwards.
Yes, I thought that was
right?
clever.
And it really will be, hopefully by the end of the year, the only place an associate goes to for any help. It will either solve their problem or it will tell them how to solve their problem. I mean, we will have a very small help desk behind there just for level 3 type calls. But so another area, we're in the security business. We have a security product called Stealth. And so one of the big moves last year was we moved all of our infrastructure, some 500 servers, out of our data center into the Azure cloud.
Yes, and you mentioned that you were a test case essentially for both Microsoft and Oracle by moving so much into the Azure cloud.
Yeah, I truly believe that. I think we are the only corporation that's actually managed to do it.
Wow.
So that again, I've presented a few times. I presented at the Hackett Best Practices Conference. So we had this picture of this mountain, and so that's where we started at the bottom, and we're climbing this mountain. And then as you're going down here, as you're going up the mountain, you'll come to areas where, no one else has been, right? You need to get from this peak to that peak, and there is no bridge.
Yeah.
So you either stop, go backwards, or you build that bridge. And so a lot of innovation in all these work streams because we wanted to continue moving forward. And so we built those bridges. And now, we're becoming like a reference for our vendors.
Well, and that's one point too that you made when we spoke, that you've essentially got the advantage of being the first one to implement the technologies that come out of your own engineering labs. So in a very serious way, I think we agreed that drinking your own champagne was a nicer way to phrase it than the other industry phrase about eating your own dog food. But
right.
So you've been doing that a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. That was not happening beforehand.
Not as much.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we did a little bit, but very significant over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been, a lot of what we do internally, Mary Fran, is what we're trying to provide for our customers, right? So, it makes sense for us to, to be able to be a reference for our sales force. So,
Yeah.
and now, especially with the amount of, even to the point of actually talking about Iris. We've put Iris together. I mean, we haven't productized it yet, but actually it can be taken and plugged into any company.
Oh, interesting.
So for example, in IDG, you have, 15 departments, right? You can put Iris in, and each department maintains their own FAQs, right? And so there is not really a need for IT. It's just, each department manages themselves, right? And trust me, it will. For example, we've reduced so far. We launched in January. We've reduced our our help desk calls by over 57%.
Wow. Well, let's that today you're. What did you tell me? 96% in the cloud, and about 4% that you'll tidy up in the rest of the year. But you didn't bring in scores of new people to help do this. You essentially were in a state of having to reduce the headcount, but basically work with you had to go to war with the army you had. And how did you manage that? I mean, this amount of change, when you talk about it, it makes me think of companies that bring in a whole new, suite of executives at the IT level and replace, roll over 50% of the employees. But you didn't do any of that. How did everybody that was part of IT before and the ones who got to stay, what kind of things did they have to change? How did you manage that?
I mean, I'd been really happy if I had the luxury of bringing in a whole new army, but I didn't have that luxury. So, like I said, I think, we were a traditional IT group, and, very good people. And so we went through a pretty aggressive downsizing. So there was a little bit, with that comes a little bit of a shock to the organization. And so, but I got everyone together. I talked with them, and really spelled out what we needed to achieve and what they needed to achieve.
Yes.
And we were, when you're not bringing in a lot of new people, your skill sets get a little bit stale. And so therefore you're a little bit, when you get a business problem, you're almost offering a legacy solution.
Yes.
And so we needed to get out of that mode. And so I wanted everyone to enable themselves, in taking up the challenge, learning new things, learning new skills, which actually was an improvement for themselves as well. They became more marketable. The application people, have been working on Workday. The technical people have been creating bots, and their resume looks much better, right? So it's very difficult to get the culture change going. That's like the longest part of this thing. And I wouldn't say 100% jumped on that boat, but I would say in our case probably 50% did, and 50% are doing a great job. So you have to monitor your people, pick the ones that are jumping on the boat, and move along with them into the build, and the ones that are not, because you still have run. You still have run to keep going, and some people are happy doing that, right? So, so it, like I said, Mary Fran, it was there was no prescribed formula. Things happened in the right way.
Okay. Let me see. Your lovely face is still frozen on the monitor here. Is there anything you can, I don't know, re-click on your end?
Hang on, let me see.
You certainly know a lot more about it than I do.
I'm trying.
Okay. Well, the next thing I wanted to ask you about was when a new CEO comes in. Your new CEO arrived in 2015, and it was certainly at a moment when Unisys was in a certain amount of crisis. And a lot of times, probably the majority of the time, what the CEO does is brings in his own CIO. The Chief Information Officer usually gets replaced in a case like that. But you not only survived it, but you've actually thrived in working with Peter Altebuff, your CEO. But you told me your very first interview with him, you were having a chat in the hallway, and you were kind of assuming he was going to fire you, but he kept you. So talk about that just kind of from a personal aspect, how that all worked out.
Well, I think Peter brought a new perspective to the corporation. He was challenging, and rightly so.
Yes.
Challenging every part of the organization, especially the corporate staff organization, for how much we cost, the size, etc. It's like anything. When you've been doing, like I said, my role for quite a while in the corporation. You feel as if you know what you're doing, but yes. He challenged that. I rose to the challenge. He gave us some very, very tough asks.
Yeah.
One of the things we did was do a Hackett benchmark, and that was really after we'd done all the reductions, and actually the Hackett measure IT on 17 work streams, and we blew every work stream out of the park. The Hackett best world-class cost of an associate, IT cost of an associate is around $8,000, and we were running at about $3,000. So from a size of IT and the cost of IT for the size of the corporation, we were actually, you would say, if you looked at that benchmark, you should probably spend more money on IT. But the problem we did have was, because I asked a different benchmark, which was the amount of revenue the company is bringing in for the cost of IT. And that, unfortunately, was the other way around.
Oh.
And so, we were too expensive for the amount of money that was coming into the company.
Right.
So we had to get better. And, so I understood, Peter's challenge. He pushed me and the organization, down this path of basically looking at new avenues for everything that we do. We started off. You have to be careful because you still have to run your business. For example, the Azure move, we did that with our development servers first, obviously, and learned that. And there was a learning curve with that. Once that was successful, then we went on to the production environments. So would I have done that 10 years ago? Probably not.
You
But
might not have done it 5 years ago, actually. Yeah.
the climate of the corporation was something that required us to take a calculated risk, and we did.
Yes.
And I've tried this video, and it's not doing it.
Yes, that's okay. We can hear you perfectly well. And anybody who's tuning in may be just listening to us anyway, because we're just sitting here at our desks. So it's not what I'd call fascinating, action-oriented TV. Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with the other business leaders within Unisys. You mentioned that you just had dinner the other night with a marketing leader, and that you have relationships now with marketing that we're talking about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago would not have existed. So the reputation of IT within the company has gone through a significant transformation of its own.
Oh, absolutely. I think over the last 3 years, we're a lot more apparent. We're a lot more current, and we've upped our communication with our associates. We've also improved our relationships with the business, and then obviously each leader of that business, right? So it's as we've been going down the journey, I think we've touched every leader. Right, with and fortunately in our case with positive and positive experiences for them. But they also understand, and it's a two-way thing. They also understand our limitations. It's not that we have millions to throw at this, right? We're doing it with the skill sets that we have, with the budget wrap that we have. And the challenges and the tasks, they all understand that. And so I think are very appreciative of what we have achieved. So yes. With that comes the respect. They have a really tough job trying to bring money into the company. They also understand that we have a really tough job trying to ensure that the company is running. So and is current.
Yeah.
So I think we are way closer now with the businesses and the business leaders than we were even 4 years ago, 5 years ago. There was a feeling that IT just do what they want to do, and I think with the process that Peter brought in, that helped to eliminate that opinion. And I think now we work as a team. Everyone understands each other's challenges, and there's respect behind that. So, in anything in life, you have to earn respect, Mary Fran. So, over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, I think we've earned the respect.
Well, and I think it's all the more impressive just from a staffing standpoint, because you had at your peak, you were over 600 people in IT, and I think you said your count now is more around 250. So,
well, 250 full-time, and I do have about 100, that provide service to me. So.
Right. Having gotten through the first 3 years of this, and an astonishing turnaround, the thing that the Hackett Group admires, the CIO 100 application judges have admired. What are your next steps? What are your big business and technology initiatives for the next into 2020 and 2021? Because I know that CIOs are never just thinking in the here and now. You have to look ahead as well. So what are the biggest items on your to-do list for the next 2 years?
So 2018, Mary Fran, and as you informed everyone, I've been here for a while, so I know 2018 was a stellar year for UIT in Unisys. The amount of delivery we did, the amount of change we did, and also with all of that, we reduced our cost as well. So I sat there, I was trying to see how do I make 2019 better. Yes. That's a pretty big challenge, pretty big bar. So one of the things, last year I said we moved to Workday, and that was a very large, cloud implementation. And so this year we've just got underway an RFP We in our applications world, we have two big elephants. One was our HR, which is normally the core, and then the other one was the e-business suite, or the ERP, Oracle ERP. So we just launched the RFP for that, and that's the elephant. We want to move into the cloud. And there's a lot of challenges around that. It'll be, I'd say, 7 or 8 times more difficult than what we did with Workday. We have a lot of customizations, some 3,000 customizations that, as you know, going into the cloud, you're not going to have customization. So really, there's a lot of re-engineering of processes and simplification to go down. So that's our biggest challenge. From I think from a technology standpoint, you mentioned, when we started this journey, we were 13% in the cloud, and right now I have a cell that says that we're 96% in the cloud, and that's a combination of platform as a service or application as a service. So. It's a significant change, and also an environment which is a lot more flexible for me to work with, right? Yeah. Because in the cloud, I can tone up and tone down very quickly. I give an example. I gave it to you in our previous conversation. In the old world, if the business wanted a new environment, I'd have to go procure a server, wait for it to get delivered, have an engineer install it before it came online, test it. So you could probably say 6 to 8 weeks, I'd be able to provide an environment. Today, I can probably provide that environment in an hour.
Yeah.
So it's a significant change as far as that's concerned.
And let's talk about the aspect from the customer point of view in all this, because during all of these last couple of years, Unisys has kept a lot of its old customers, but also added new ones, and that's especially a focus, probably as it always is, for sales and marketing teams to add more in the future. How has the customer expectation changed in terms of what they look to Unisys to deliver to them, and just how the company relates to them differently?
Well, I think it was twofold. One, we do have we've been around for a long time. Unisys is an iconic name, been in the industry for a long time. So we also have, a lot of loyal customers, right, that have been with us for, 20 plus, 30 years even. The focus over the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, it's always a focus, but really has been into trying to pick up new logos, so new customers. And we brought a lot more products into the mix, especially around security, around, in fact, transformation. Right, we have a methodology, and we provide that service. Very similar to what we've done internally in IT. Right, we can do that for a customer, and so I mean that. Our results in 2018 showed a significant turnaround.
Right.
With probably most successful year, I think, since 2003. Right, and that was a big change, and of course the challenge for us is to, keep that going this year, right, and really show the turnaround, and so I think with that, right, we're getting a lot more, I think, credibility back in the market space. Peter himself, he's on the Security Council for the government, so that brings a lot of respect with that, when we're a security is in everything we do, right? Yes. So all of that, it's never one single item, Mary Fran. It's when things start to work properly, it's like we're talking about IT. I'm just one component. That component started to work, but our financial team have done a huge change, and so their costs are reduced. They're providing a better service. all the different cogs. HR have now moved to Workday and simplified their processes. It's easier to engage with us.
Yeah.
Our sales team, we have one sales team. We used to have product and services. So all of these changes are now coming together and really, I think, making us a force and bringing credibility with it with our clients.
Mm-hmm. Do the expectations from your government clients, are they significantly different from what your private industry clients expect from you? Because I ask that because I talk with a lot of CIOs about what the customer demand metric is like these days. And there is, especially the expectation that everything will be available in the cloud and will likely be self-service. I mean, it sounds like you're very much serving that, but I wonder if when you meet with customers or when you hear about them directly from the people managing their accounts, is there a big difference between government and private industry in terms of what they're demanding from Unisys and from other vendors?
There is. I mean, as you know, there's a lot more compliance required to be a government contractor.
Of course.
And also, it's not as easy moving, a government organization into the cloud as it is, moving commercial. So, they are a little bit, more difficult. But we have a great leader who runs our federal practice, and very, very respected in the government. And to be honest, if you want to do business in that arena, you have to have someone of that nature. We have some very key leaders in that area who worked for the government in the past, and the Army generals, etc. So. And they're a significant part, as you said, of our revenue base, and have been very successful over the last 3 years. So I think, I actually only 3 or 4 weeks ago presented to our federal leadership this transformation journey. And, the reaction, the feedback was great, because they can use that, with their clients.
Yes.
And it's not to say, oh, I work for federal and we can't do that. That's not the case. You have to work through. I mean, even the government will move into a cloud. They'll go into the government cloud, but it'll be different to everywhere else. But it's a big part of our business. I have a dedicated team for federal, because you have to have U.S. nationals working on their applications. One of the things, we have a stealth product. I haven't created a separate environment. What we do is stealth actually segregates commercial and federal. And so no one in commercial can see federal, no one in federal can see commercial, unless we give them access to it, right? So stealth works in a way where we can create a community of interest. And that community, only people who have access to that community can see it. So you don't actually have to have, separate hardware, for want of a better word, to be segregated. So, which, by the way, helped us a lot with our move into the Azure cloud. I think most companies will be using containers, and because that's really the only way you can segregate yourself in a vendor cloud.
Right.
We didn't need to, because all our infrastructure, all our servers are protected by stealth in the Azure cloud. The stealth is basically a cloaking device, so if you can't see it, you can't hack it. That's the theme we go for.
Well, that was always one of my favorite imaginary products on Star Trek.
Exactly.
When the Klingons, I think, were the ones who had the cloaking technology.
I use that analogy when someone says to me, "What is stealth?"
You'd have to, because I'm sure that everybody who works for the government is a Star Trek fan. Well, that's probably not true. They'd almost have to be. Well, I would think, too, that is the federal government or just governments in general, do you think, is that your greatest customer growth arc for the future?
Oh, no. I think, the huge push on our commercial side, our services, and really, services is like you said, 85% of our business.
Yes.
Right. So we are really pushing in the commercial arena.
Mm-hmm.
Your business is a little bit to and fro. Federal had a great year, in 2017.
Yeah.
It wasn't as great in 2018, whereas commercial got much better in 2018. So
Mm-hmm.
they're actually, it's now becoming a little bit of a battle, and a bit of competition.
Yeah.
Amongst federal, commercial, and also the regions, right? So we're in every part of the world. So Latin America, Europe, North America,
Mm-hmm.
and Pacific Asia. To see who's going to be. I think they're actually running some kind of competition. Who's going to be the winner of that? So it's all positive stuff. I've been in the company a long time, and when things are going right. You feel right. You feel energized, and I feel that over the last 18 months, it's really been building up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at some point when we were talking last week, you said kind of wistfully that you wonder what it would be like to be a CIO in a company that's growing like crazy and has all kinds of money to spend. Probably some of your clients could tell you what that feels like. You haven't experienced that in some time.
No, I absolutely. First thing I'll tell you, I would never change a day of what happened in my career in Unisys. It's been an amazing ride. It's an amazing company.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, my whole career. But yeah, every now and then you look at it, because every penny we spend, Mary Fran, has to bring value.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough environment, right? So. Yeah, it would be nice if we had lots of money, but honestly, I don't think the results will be any different. I don't think if we had thrown even more money to what we've achieved, I think the results would have been comparable because from our story, like I said, we did get a lot of luck. Mm-hmm. All the 8 horses came in,
mm-hmm.
And no one banks on all 8 horses coming in. So it was. We like telling the story now, actually.
Yeah. Well, you said something. You said your own sales force finally knows they have an IT department, and it is an IT department that they can brag about and use as a reference client. So
that is true.
Yeah.
Very much true. It's going that way, and I'm really pleased about that.
Tell me about on the front where you watch emerging technology trends. I mean, you have like the security product that you mentioned. That's something that came out of Unisys's own engineering labs. Yes?
Yes, it is. Yes.
So talk about what you're exploring and what is it the emerging edge of technology that you think is going to be a real game changer going forward? Most CIOs, when I ask them that question these days, they say AI or sometimes robotics.
Yeah. I mean, we as I said last year, we were into getting our bot Iris out,
mm-hmm.
And the other thing we were working on was RPA, so robotic processes. So
mm-hmm.
early on this year, we went live with our month-end process, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's a significant process. We run some 750,000 interfaces at the close of every month and every quarter.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. A lot of there used to be a lot of manual touch points
mm-hmm.
In this process, and I'm looking at around a 30% efficiency from robotics. And we were very successful with it in our month-end process. Now we're working with each one of our businesses mm-hmm. in our business process to roll RPA out. AI is, I think, the next step. Although I'm looking, we have some of that with Iris, mm-hmm. because Iris is continuously learning, right? If it can't do something, it works out. I couldn't do this, so it's always learning, right, mm-hmm. from that and mm-hmm. improving. So, but I'm looking for like more of a significant AI case, which I'm going to work with our engineering team with.
Yeah.
I think that will be the next. But this year, really going to push RPA and self-service. I want to eliminate. The other thing we managed to do is we're eliminating the use of VPN.
Really?
We're using our Stealth Core product. We're now running Stealth on every device in our corporation, and that protects an associate in getting into our network.
Okay.
And therefore they do not need to use VPN. And that, by the way, is, it goes down the dynamic isolation is part of what we are offering as a service with our product. For example, if a end device gets compromised, we can isolate that endpoint immediately.
Interesting.
And you can't talk to anyone, it can't go anywhere else. So it's really using that sort of community of interest. Each device is a community. And if a community goes bad, it just gets locked up. It can't talk to any other community.
Okay.
So we don't need VPN. So hopefully the people that are listening in, I think everyone will want to be there, because VPN, it's old news now.
Well, I would think too, everyone's thinking about how attractive it would be to cut their networking costs.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So, there's always an aspect of it. One thing now, my friend, in 3 years ago, everything I did was to look for how much money I could reduce out of that event. It's hopefully Peter's not listening to this. It's not always the case in today, because now I'm looking at improving.
Yes.
Right. I don't want to increase my cost, but if I can make improvement, but not increase my cost, that's good enough.
Yes.
Because we've done so much already. So it's a nice position.
Well, it's a good one to be in, and I can remember going through this in 2008 and 9, how many CIOs I would talk to that would give me their speeches about how they were doing more with less. And
right.
I've come to really despise that phrase, because I think at the end of the day, if it's just all about cost cutting and doing less and less and less, I think you do less. I don't think you end up doing more with less. Now, maybe Unisys is a case study in the opposite direction.
Right.
Which leads me to my final question for you today about what are your what leadership lessons would you like to pass along to other CIOs who have to struggle with all of these similar changes going on in their industries and a need to digitally transform, and they may not have the level of kind of a crisis that Unisys faced down and worked through, but what do you recommend for other CIOs in terms of their approach and their attitude to this level of change?
I think, this transformation, is you yourself as a CIO transform as well, right? And you look at what I would do is that you need to understand your environment, for one. You need to understand your corporation, and then look at the things that where does this corporation need to go, and challenge yourself, probably beyond the conservative way you may have been before, but really challenge yourself and your people in taking that leap of faith. The rewards on the other side are great. The risk along the way is something that, with all your experience in you can try to manage. And that's what we did. We did not know all the answers. We took the risk, we managed the risk, and we were able to get to the other side. And I think we're never at the other side, Mary Fran. It's a continuing journey.
Well, you're somewhere on that bridge that you were building between the two mountaintops, right?
But I'm telling you I think the job satisfaction from an organization standpoint, yourself, you reinvent yourself, right? So I'm different to what I was 4 years ago. And I'm challenging every day now, which probably annoys the hell out of my direct reports. But it's because I've got the bite, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And so you continue to push yourselves to see how much better can you be. And trust me, you can always be better.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, the founder of our company, who unfortunately passed away in 2014, but he used to say that the largest room in the house was the room for improvement. Which I used to roll my eyes at that one, but I actually think that probably is really true, especially for CIOs. CIOs always seem to be striving and driving and thinking forward. And this is, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. I've been so pleased to hear about all of the progress that you've made. And if you joined us for Leadership Live late, you can watch the full episode. We will post it up on CIO.com a little later today. And it will also be on our YouTube channel, which is IDG Tech Talk. You won't actually see Upinder moving around a lot. We had a little bit of issue with some frozen video, but his voice came across quite strongly. And so the best way might be to listen to the audio podcast of today. And wherever you get your podcasts, we will be there. I hope you can also join us for our next episode, which will be Monday, July 15th. I'll be joined by Rob Galvin, who is the Chief Technology Officer of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And you can find all of our previous episodes of CIO Leadership Live. I think we're into the high 20s now with these interviews on our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I will see you again next time.
Thank you, Mary Fran.